Welcome to the Joy of Cruising podcast with your host, award-winning author Paul C. Thornton, a weekly conversation with the amazing cruisers featured in the Joy of Cruising trilogy, comprised of The Joy of Cruising, Cruising Interrupted, and new release, The Joy of Cruising Again. Each book is a compilation of features about cruisers and cruise and travel personalities from around the world. It's the next best thing to cruising, hearing about cruising from the unique and diverse perspectives of Paul's amazing guests.
Hello, passionate cruisers. This is Paul. I am delighted to welcome this week on the Joy of Cruising podcast, Venus Anderson. I was browsing Melanin at Sea, one of the most influential Facebook affinity groups comprised of 94,000 members, created by friends of the show and global cruise personalities A Rich and Jazzy Life. Venus happens to be the administrator of Melanin at Sea and sister-in-law of the founders, Rich and Jazzy. Following the holidays, Venus posted, "We recently returned from our 19-day trip to Sydney, Australia. After planning this trip for about 16 months, we braved the 22 hours in flights from JFK to Sydney with ease. Thankfully, no hiccups or delays. We had the opportunity to stay in Honolulu, Hawaii for 36 hours and in Sydney for one whole day before boarding the cruise. We took an 8-day cruise on the Carnival Splendor to Noumea and Lifou, New Caledonia. This sounded like a dream trip to me. I've interviewed well over 100 passionate cruisers, and many, even seasoned world travelers, still have Australia on their bucket list. As I am wont to do, I reached out to Venus and invited her to the podcast so that I and the listeners could experience her trip vicariously through her. I am so glad Venus agreed to join the Joy of Cruising podcast. Venus' adventure took place from mid-December 2023 through Christmas and New Year's, accompanied by her daughter, 13-year-old Autumn, and her cousin's husband, and their son. The group flew from JFK in New York to Honolulu, Hawaii, where they got to spend a couple of days. Afterwards, they flew to Sydney, Australia, and boarded the Carnival Splendor for an 8-day Christmas cruise with 2 stops, 2 French territories in New Caledonia. After the cruise, they spent 6 additional nights in Sydney and rung in the New Year there, before flying to New York. Surprise, Venus plans to go back again someday. Welcome, Venus, to the Joy of Cruising podcast.
Good morning. Hi, Paul. How are you?
Pretty good. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking.
Good. Before we discuss your Australian bucket list adventure, tell our listeners about yourself in general. Where you're from, where you live, family, professional background, anything you would like to share.
Sure. So, again, my name is Venus. I am from Staten Island, New York originally, and I just recently relocated to Newark, New Jersey, so not too far out the way. Still the same airport to catch those cruises. I work for the Made in New York Production Assistant Training Program. I'm the program director there. I've been there for over a decade, helping low-income and mostly minority students work in the TV and film industry. I myself used to work on TV and film sets in New York City, so things for VH1, MTV. So it's a pretty fun career.
Good. Let's talk about cruising. Are you a big cruiser?
I'd say I'm a moderate cruiser. Before COVID, I had only been on like 3 cruises. I think I went on the first one when I was 17, because my sister Jasmine, who is one of the founders of Melanin at Sea, she was about 12 years old. So my parents took us out of school to go on a 4-day pre-Christmas cruise because they knew during Christmas time it would be more expensive. So back then, I don't think people were really booking cruises on the internet like they do now. So I remember my mom going to a travel agent and connecting, with them and us getting on a Carnival. It was a Carnival Fantasy in the year 2000. Yeah, I think it was in the year 2000. And we only went to the Bahamas. We went to Freeport and Nassau. But for us, we had never been out the country before. So it was a really good time. I remember being underage and having rum punch and
I'll bet it was a good time.
but not much. Obviously, I was with parents, but it was a different experience. From there, I didn't cruise again until my best friend and I, our birthdays are 10 days apart. We went on a birthday cruise for our 30th birthdays. Once again, we did Carnival because we stuck to what we knew.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was a better itinerary. We went to Puerto Rico. We went to St. Thomas. I believe we left from Miami, so
Mm-hmm.
it was able to go a little bit further south. So
Mm-hmm.
that was a good time. And then, of course, we did a family cruise in 2018 with Richard and Jasmine, and like maybe 25 of us. Oh, actually, I did 4 cruises before COVID. I forgot about the Royal Caribbean one we did in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
So then, when COVID, knocked out everything, we couldn't go anywhere. And I enjoy traveling. I used to do a lot of land-based traveling, especially with my daughter, who's now 13. When cruising came back, Richard and Jasmine, they thought of this whole melanin at sea idea. And it was something, I think I was at their house and Richard put it together, as a Facebook group. And we just invited family and friends. And it was a small thing at the time. And our first cruise was the Carnival Mardi Gras, the inaugural. So there were a bunch of people on their YouTube. And for me, that was a new experience because I had never seen people walking around a ship with cameras before. Pre-COVID, people weren't really into that. So it was definitely different.
Let's go back to that first cruise. I know you went with family.
Mhm.
Did you get hooked, or
I think it
were
was
you
too early.
too young to get into? Okay.
Yeah, because the very next year I went away to college, and so then I was a broke college student, and just saving money to go to and from home. I went to Ohio State, so just coming up with airfare money was a task. So I didn't really go on too many trips, other than maybe Mexico and Canada at that point. But they definitely were land trips. I would say we kind of got hooked from the family cruise in 2018 because every year after that we went on a cruise. And not only that, I had my daughter at that point was around 7 when we did that family trip. So I enjoyed the fact that she really enjoyed it, and it was something families could do.
So your first cruise after the pandemic was Mardi Gras, and that was
Mhm.
quite a difference from some of the ships that you went on early on. How'd you like that?
Oh, it was great. I mean, the early on ships, because we weren't as experienced, we didn't know they were old ships.
Didn't know what you were missing.
Exactly. We had no idea. But when we got on the Mardi Gras, it was like, oh, a roller coaster and new amenities, and they really rolled out the red carpet kind of deal. Because even when we did Royal Caribbean, it was the grandeur of the seas. So that was an old ship.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So on the Mardi Gras with the roller coaster, was your daughter on that one?
Yes, she was.
Did she get to ride the
She
roller
did. She
coaster?
was tall enough. And my nieces went, but they were not tall enough. Rain and Roy.
Yeah, I took my granddaughter on the Mardi Gras, and we rode the roller coaster. She
Hmm.
drove, and I didn't realize that you could control the speed. And she was a speed demon.
Yeah, the kids like that. Autumn, my daughter, she did not want to drive. So I drove the roller coaster and I liked the speed. So we went faster and we enjoyed it so much we did it twice. We didn't care. It was $15. It was worth every dime. It was something different. And we like going to amusement parks anyway. So
Sure.
it was a lot of fun.
Give us a few highlights of your post-pandemic cruises. After what have you done since the Mardi Gras, other than the one we're going to talk about in a minute to
Oh,
Australia?
sure. Well, once again, Melanin at Sea did a Mardi Gras. Melanin at Sea, that was the 1.0 that they did the following year. So we got to do Mardi Gras twice.
Hmm.
I've done Carnival Panorama, so we did West Coast. And I think for me, doing that first like West Coast cruise was like, I got to get out of the Caribbean. I had to do something a little bit different. At that point, I feel like cruising was still pretty inexpensive. So we were
Hmm.
just booking cruises, kind of back to back. But I also had to keep in mind my work schedule because, I'm not remote. I'm a hybrid employee, so I do have to appear in person a few days out the week.
Hmm.
So I'm not as flexible to go cruising like a lot of the people, you
Sure.
probably do or in Melanin at Sea where they're working on the ship. I'd rather not have to work while I'm on
Right.
vacation. So after pandemic, I would say we got up to about 4 cruises a year. After going from one per year, we started doing four per year. So we
Hmm.
did Panorama. I went on the breeze with my mom for New Year's. I think that was going into 2020, like 2022. So we went out of Galveston for that one. My daughter and I, we did the Venezia up to Canada. I did Melanin at Sea 1.5. That was the Venezia to Bermuda. And then
How did you what were your impressions of Venezia? It looks beautiful.
it's pretty, but it's a smaller ship and it does have some functionality things that I didn't appreciate. But honestly, I did it twice. So obviously I liked it. I always say with Carnival, I would do a ship twice, but no more than that. So I've done the Venezia twice, I've done the Breeze twice, I've done the Mardi Gras twice. We also did Norwegian during that time. Uh, we did yeah, it was 7 day last year for spring breaks when the kids were out of school from New York down to Bermuda. And the ship, that was the first time I ever stayed in an overnight. So it was like 2.5 days staying in Bermuda. Yeah. And that was our first time on Norwegian, which I wasn't too crazy about. The kids weren't that crazy about. It was a small group of us, of friends and family members, mostly cousins and friends on the Norwegian Prima trip. My daughter was the oldest, and then my friend's daughter, she's about 2 years younger. So she's a little bit taller than my daughter, actually. So they were able to enjoy all the activities on the ship. The younger kids, not so much. The Prima is definitely not a family ship.
What
And they had limited spots in the kids' camp, which really was nerve-wracking.
what about you? What was your impression of Prima? The reason I'm particularly curious about Prima is I'm booked on. Uh,
Ah, well, I hope as an adult, I think you'll enjoy it. It's very relaxing. The Lido deck is very small because of the fact that they overcompensated for the racetrack, which I think was totally unnecessary. But I could see why they want to do something more unique. Are you doing the Bermuda itinerary or are you going out of Orlando?
no, Prima, we're doing Norway.
Oh, so you know what? Being that you have unique ports, I think you'll enjoy it much better because when you leave from New York, you have limited options as to where you can go, especially in a 7 day situation. But that was the one that was most convenient for the kids. And we decided we wanted to try a different cruise line from Carnival and check it out. And the kids were we want to go back on Carnival. They kept saying that. So it wasn't as fun. So me as an adult, thankfully my child is old enough where I get, adult free time. It was just okay for me. It wasn't a favorite. I don't know. It was really pretty. It was really nice. If you like Starbucks, they have that on there. I'm not a coffee drinker, so it didn't phase me any, but the line was complete. I mean, there were just lines everywhere. I feel like a lot of the common areas are just a little small for the amount of people that they put on the
Yeah,
ship.
that's what I've heard. From a positive aspect, I'm told it's sort of like a upscale boutique hotel. But in
Yes.
terms of a cruise line, especially people who normally sail the big NCL ships, they don't like it because it's the spaces are kind of chopped up. I'm told.
Yes, they are. There's a lot of dead spaces. I don't think I've ever been in a cruise group on Facebook where people complained after the fact. Um, I saw a lot of complaints. And, you usually will hear people complaining along the way, but people were just like, never again. So I don't know how the Aqua will fare because I heard it's pretty similarly built. Um, but for the price that we paid, um, I wouldn't do it again.
So, what motivated you to put together such a journey, the one to Australia, that many people and even seasoned cruisers, dream about? They have that on their bucket list. I mean, I've interviewed people who've been, all over the world, and then I say, well, where haven't you been that you want to go to? And a lot of times, the first thing out of their mouth is Sydney.
Right.
What motivated you to go on a cruise to Sydney, or cruise from Sydney?
It all started, I guess, years ago when me and my mom went on a cruise. We met an elderly woman on she was on the Tinder boat, and she asked us, were we mother and daughter? And we said, yeah. And she said, well, that's so nice that you're cruising together and you're doing it while you're young. And I looked at her like, ma'am, you don't know how old I am. I guess she thought I was like, I was in my 30s at that point, but I guess she probably thought I was younger. But she was with her home attendant and she was in a wheelchair. So she said, I'm just happy to be here. I'm not going to be able to do much, but I'm just happy to be here. And she said, you know what? Enjoy your life while you're young, and
Mm-hmm.
enjoy your life while you can still get around. And that, that always kind of stayed with me.
Mm-hmm.
My cousin passed away when she was 30. I was a little bit older than her. And I thought about all the trips that she and I used to take together and all the cousins used to take together. And I'm like, you know what? Let me start putting together a bucket. So Australia became a part of the bucket list, Sydney specifically, because, you see the Opera House is usually the biggest landmark you see there. And you think like the kangaroos and koalas, but it
Mm-hmm.
was never focused around a cruise until Carnival started sending us these outrageous casino deals back in 2022.
Okay.
So I started talking to my cousin about it, and she said, I really want to go to Australia too. So we shared this whole idea of wanting to go to Sydney. And she said, why don't we do a cruise while we were there? We could break it up. We could do half cruise and half land. So we kind of have best of both worlds. And I said, I think that's a great idea. So we both booked our families on in their respective balcony. We got balcony rooms, really inexpensive. I guess because Carnival knows that, a lot of Americans aren't necessarily flying over to Sydney just for an older ship because we have, some of the best ships in the world, in America. So why would we do that? But surprisingly enough, there were people on the ship who were from the United States. And I guess, and talking to them, they were all in the casino because they all had casino deals. So that really became a big part of the trip, and it was an 8-day sailing.
I'm sure you wore your melanin at sea attire. Did you see much melanin at sea?
So to my surprise, it was more diverse than I thought it was going to be. In terms of the melanin, uh, every couple of every other day you would run into someone who was African, and they were from nations like
Okay. Okay.
Sudan and Gambia, or who do we meet? Some people from Chad, Zimbabwe. So there was a Zimbabwean family that me and my daughter, we were on a tender boat at one of the stops, and it was a husband, wife, and two sons. And the eldest son looked like he was around my daughter's age, and the younger son maybe looked like he was about 7 or 8. And the husband says, "Excuse me, we saw you at breakfast." And I said to my wife, "They're not African." And I said, well, I noticed a lot of people are African, but for me, I'm from New York. And he said, oh, you're from New York? So then we sparked the conversation from there. And the oldest son, you can tell the children were born in Australia.
Hmm.
I forgot what part they told us. They were from Perth.
Hmm.
So they weren't even from Sydney. But I said, are there a lot of Black people in Perth? And he said, not a lot, but there are Black people in Perth.
Hmm.
So it was interesting to see. And of course, it was a lot of Asians. You're on that side of the world. So Asians from every country in Asia, a lot of Indian people, which, I have a lot of diversity in my family. So we have people of Indian descent.
Sure.
So it was a lot more culturally diverse than I thought it was going to be,
Hmm. Hmm.
which was nice. But in terms of seeing people that look like us, and that I guess that's how you can tell the difference between American Blacks and Black people from different countries around the world. We met one couple from Ohio,
Hmm. Oh, okay.
Black, and they told us they got a casino deal and they were in the casino almost every day like we were.
Okay. It wasn't MH Family Adventures, was it?
No, it was a husband and wife, and they were not in Melanin Sea, so we urged them to join.
Yeah, yeah. I just interviewed Raquel and Ron from MH Family Adventures, and
Yes, I see, and
uh,
I watched them, and I see that they're from Ohio. I went
yeah,
to Ohio State,
I
so
didn't realize
yeah,
that they're from Ohio. So,
that's a long journey to the cruise ports.
yep, yep. I meant to ask you when you brought it up, but since you brought it up a second time, what drew you? I know this is I'm jumping around, but what drew you to Ohio State from New York?
Oh, so no one in my family had really gone away to school. And, when you grow up watching a different world and shows where, if you grew up in the 90s, you saw a lot of Black images of people going to college.
Hmm.
So for me, I wanted that away experience.
Okay.
And when I was in high school, I was on a traveling debate team. So we got to stay at college campuses around the country. So I
Hmm.
had did like 2 weeks at Northwestern, University of Vermont, Emory University, upstate New York. And I was like, yeah, this go away life is for me. So my aunt, coincidentally, she was a big college football and basketball fan. So she started, when I was college searching, putting together a list of different schools that she liked. And I was like, I'm not, I don't play a sport, so I'm not going to go there for the sports. But it was Ohio State drew me in, the academics, the fact that it was a large school. All my life, I had gone to very small schools, elementary and high school all together. And I said, you know what, go big or go home. And we visited the campus. It was beautiful. It was amazing. I wound up graduating. Initially, I went in for journalism, and I wound up graduating with a BA in mass communication. Excellent experience. I'm happy I did it. Back then, the cost wasn't that much different from staying in state in New York. So I'm sure my parents were happy about that too.
So, getting back to your Australian bucket list adventure. So, you flew to Hawaii from JFK. I trust you had a uneventful flight.
Ah, I don't even think I mentioned this first, but we had to connect through LA.
Right, right.
So it was a quick stop in LA. And I've always heard the flights from LA to Hawaii, the turbulence is, not so great. But I will tell you, American Airlines, thumbs down. That's a 6.5 hour flight from LAX to Honolulu. And they did not offer food.
Oh, wow.
They offered beverages and peanuts or pretzels, and that was it.
I wonder if that's the same flight I took. I went to Hawaii last year for the first time.
Hmm.
The cruise left out of Hawaii and it actually cruised up to Alaska. So it was a dream trip. But,
Oh,
I didn't
what
really,
cruise line?
this was in CL.
Hmm.
But I didn't really do a whole lot of research on, the flight and all of that. And I must have cut class in geography when we studied this. But, we flew to LA.
Hmm.
We flew from Charlotte to LA, and I was thinking, okay, from LA to Hawaii is just a couple of hours. I don't know why I didn't even pay attention, Venus, to the times on the airline ticket. I just had it in my
Yeah.
mind that going to LA was like the real hassle of the trip. And
No, it's getting from LA
yes,
to Hawaii that is the hassle. I mean,
yes.
I don't because my best friend lives in LA and she flew last year to Maui. This was before the fires. And she was like, "Oh, I'm gonna have a long trip." And I said, "Long trip? Aren't you already like almost there?" And she said, "No, it's like 7 hours."
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I don't know why it never occurred
Mhm.
to me that, getting to LA is,
Hawaii it's really out there.
yeah, yeah.
No.
So then you did get to Hawaii and you spent a little time. What you do? Or what did you
Yeah,
all
so
do?
we strategically planned to spend a night in Hawaii. Funny story. So what we didn't realize that was we booked these flights so far in advance because we had noticed the year. Now we booked the cruise first. I think I mentioned back in like early 2022. So of course the flights were not available at that time. But what me and my cousin did was we looked at what the flights would be throughout the year for 2022 going into 2023. So we kind of had an idea of what our budget
Right.
would have to be like.
Right.
So, man, closer to Christmas, it was, if you went on like the major airlines, we were talking about like $3,500 a person to sit in
Whoa.
coach. And
Wow.
that was if you booked around like Thanksgiving to leave around the time that we were going to leave. Of course, that was like 30 days in advance. So we said, you know what, we're going to have to do it as soon as the flights become available. They started becoming available like in maybe February. I would say maybe 2 weeks from now, you'll see Christmas and New Year's kind of open up.
Right.
And yeah, once we started looking, they were still a little pricey. And I started doing a little homework. Coincidentally, one of my colleagues, she used to live in LA, and she told me how she used to fly to Australia because she used to date this guy who was from there.
Okay.
And I said, "You just casually going to Australia?" She's like, "Yeah, I've been there like 10 times." I said, "Well, that's interesting." And she said, "Yeah, there are low cost carriers that go from Hawaii to Australia." So she gave me the name Jetstar. And I said, "Jetstar, is that like a Spirit?" And she said, "Yeah, it's like a no frills, but the seats actually go back and you'll get food." She said, because it's so long that they do have amenities. And I said, all right, she said, and they're fairly reliable. So I started looking up reviews, and I said to my cousin, as long as we can make it to Hawaii, we can take Jetstar because they leave from Honolulu.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we did. So we wound up booking the flight on Jetstar. I forget how much it was, but we saved a significant amount of money by not doing an American carrier directly there. Well, you can't really go directly to Australia from New York, but from Hawaii there. And then they still allowed 66 pounds worth of luggage per person once you bought the bundle with the two meals, and you got like if you could buy like a bigger seat because they had a whole, like, they didn't call it first class area, but they wound up canceling the flight and bumping it to the next day in July after we had already bought the tickets in March. So now that gave us more than a day in more than just staying in Hawaii for the next day. So we wound up staying 2 nights in Hawaii instead. So then I said, we have these kids. We have my daughter who's 13 and my little cousin who's 10. We had to figure out things for them to do in Hawaii. We went to the Dole Plantation,
Okay.
which was really nice. They have the world's largest pineapple maze.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a fun activity for the kids. And we ate the pineapple ice cream, and my daughter found some, that's the only place, Hawaii is the only place in the world where you can buy tan face Hello Kitties. And then we found out they sell these things on eBay for like 5 times the price because you have to go to Hawaii to find them. So Hello Kitty is mostly white
Mm-hmm.
in the face.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was fun for her. And then that evening we did a luau, and the luau was at the museum. So we were by Diamond Head. We took pictures by Diamond Head.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was just a really fun experience. Unfortunately, it was too chilly, so we didn't get to go to the beach. We got to see Waikiki Beach, but we didn't get to go.
So then how long was the flight from Hawaii to Australia?
Oh, that was a shade under 11 hours.
Oh, wow.
So that's what we really had to take our deep breath. But for me, I could sleep anywhere. So I slept half that flight, and it was great for me. And you saw people walking around on the plane. They were getting in some cardio because the plane is big enough. People were getting up, stretching, and they fed you and had my music. I wound up watching several episodes of Succession. But yeah, the flight wasn't bad, turbulence wise or anything like that. You just really have to have the patience to, sit there. And when we flew there, keep in mind, Hawaii is already like 5 hours back from New York. And then we were flying backwards to then fly from Hawaii to Australia, which is forward in time. So we wound up going to a totally different day. Which was odd. It was a really odd adjustment to get used to the time, because I'm used to New York to LA or even New York to Europe which is, you're not going to get any more than a 3 hour or a 6 hour difference. But to be 16 plus hours ahead that was pretty unnatural to the body.
Yeah, yeah. I just did a podcast. She's a best-selling author, and the reason she was on the podcast is she used to be a cruise ship doctor, and so in corresponding with her, you know, it was weird figuring out the time. Sometimes I would write her an email, and I don't know if it's the middle of the night there or the middle of the. It was just kind of weird corresponding with her.
It is.
But
And imagine we were calling family for the holidays. It was Christmas, New Year's. People were sending us Merry Christmas, and it was already the next day for us. Like we already lived that.
So you got to Australia.
So we got to Australia on December 17th. We wound up staying one night in a hotel because, you got to always fly in the day before, shouldn't show up the day of. You go down to this area in North Sydney called the Rocks, which is where the pier is. And I mean, it's really like city, very trendy. You got your bars, you got your nice hotels and everything like that. And the actual port was really nice, very modern. So we were on that ship, we're coming from America. We got to show our documentation. They did require that we have travel insurance. They didn't scrutinize anything. We're going on Carnival in America. You're used to seeing a lot of security and sometimes chaos at some of the ports in America. Everything was succinct. People were orderly. Everybody was friendly, really nice, really nice people. They required the travel insurance, and I kept showing people, and they were like, "Oh, that's fine." I'm like, "You don't want to read it?" I paid all this money for travel insurance. So, we were on that boat in maybe 10 minutes, even through security. They still obviously had metal detectors and stuff like that, but it was a smooth transition to go from the Uber to the port to inside the ship. Yeah.
Now, had you been on Splendor before?
I had not, but my sister had, because apparently that boat was in New York at one point over a decade ago. And I had YouTube videos, and, for me, the ship wasn't really a big deal. Looking on YouTube, I was like, "Ooh, the aesthetic is unpleasant."
Give us an overview of the ship.
Ugly, absolutely ugly.
That was pretty emphatic.
If you have trypophobia, it's circles. Like it's decorated with a lot of circles, like everywhere, and it's like mostly hot pink and black. It reminded me of like Miami Vice in a way, with the amount of pink and the black tiles. The 80s aesthetic. I still remember from like my childhood seeing that type of decoration, that decor.
Was it decorated nicely for the holidays?
Yeah, for the holidays, they really did it up. The tree, I don't know how tall it was, but it was beautiful. There was even one day where they had like a Christmas party in the middle of the ship, and they made it snow with fake snow. They handed out Santa hats that said Carnival on it. They had a pajama party on the Lido deck, which was really nice, a Christmas pajama party. It was highly, when we booked it, the ship didn't have a theme, but we just knew it was going to sail over Christmas. And then maybe early 2023, my daughter just handed me a little Christmas hat. But in 2023, Carnival themed it a Christmas cruise. So even the characters, the Cat in the Hat and the Grinch and all, they all had the Christmas motif on. And it was just really nice. It was a really nice family vacation. You saw a lot of families on the ship. I will say big difference between the American and the Australian crowd is that the kids didn't run up and down the ship, knocking on doors late at night. You really didn't get fighting. Kids were kids. You saw little naughty things going on, but it wasn't as egregious as what I've been seeing lately on some of these cruises and here lately on some of these things. So, yeah, it was refreshing to see that, it was kind of wholesome, especially for the younger kids. They didn't have to deal with teenagers being crazy.
Pretty good food. Did you go to any specialty restaurants?
Well, we always do the steakhouse on the first night, which still, I honestly think Carnival has one of the best steakhouses at sea, especially for the price. Of course, everything was in Australian dollars. So at the time of sailing, it was 68 cents for every American dollars. So we saved about 32% on everything. So for us, everything was cheaper. So I was booking massages. Uh, I mean, I would never get those prices here. And even if I went to Europe, I'm not getting, that price. So yeah, we did the steakhouse, but it really was never they didn't really have as many dedicated restaurants. I will say they had a tandoori restaurant that was different, but it was a buffet during the middle of the day. So anybody could go to it and they could just get Indian food, which was great. But then one of the nights, the Indian buffet turned into a fine dining restaurant. So they roped off. It was located in the aft of the ship. So they
Hmm.
roped off the area and put fine linen, and then they charged people money for the dinner portion of that. We didn't do that though. And of course, they had the seafood shack, which is always a hit. It was very similar to the
Hmm.
American seafood shack, except it wasn't at the back of the ship. It was inside where the buffet usually is.
Were there any, and I don't even know what Australia is known for. I was going to say, were there any local delicacies served?
So it's weird because Sydney specifically has so many different cultures. And when we were on land, we took a tour, and the tour guide told us there were 120 cultures represented in that city. So you're not going to necessarily see a lot of Australian food. You saw a lot of Indian fare and Asian fare. I mean, the Mongolian wok, the line was you had to get there early or you're going to stand there for like an hour and a half.
Hmm.
Um, I would say the biggest, and of course they have the guys burgers. That's always a hit on Carnival. But the only difference I would say that I saw was something called pies and snags.
Hmm.
And we were like, what's pies and snags? We figured that was Australian food. So they're literally like little meat pies. I guess it's also European, little meat pies, like little pot pies, we would call
Hmm.
them. Um, they love meat there. Um, and then the snags were not hot dogs, but like beef sausages, like
Hmm.
a kielbasa kind of deal. It didn't look very flavorful to me, so I skipped that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, but I did get lamb chops because you can't go across Australia and not have lamb chops. And let me tell you, best lamb chops I've ever had.
So educate me. They're known for that.
Yes,
Australia's known. Oh, okay.
most lamb chops that are sold in the United States are from New Zealand or Australia.
Get
Yes,
out. I did
yes,
not know that.
yes.
Okay.
They really, I would say on the regular main dining room menus, you're going to see lamb cutlet. And then, of course, on the regular menus, they offer the premium offerings. So for me, one day I went to dinner by myself because everybody else was sleeping. And I splurged on me and I bought the lamb chops. They were like $25 worth every single dollar. Okay. Yeah.
So talk about the stops. You went to, I understand you went to two stops. I probably pronounced them wrong in the introduction. So correct me. How do you pronounce the two stops?
So they're both in New Caledonia, which is owned by France.
Right?
So the first stop was Noumea and the second stop was Lifou.
Okay.
Yeah, so you got to think
I,
Pepe
I,
Le Pew, Lifou.
yeah, I wasn't. I guess that's a lot. I think I call it Lifou, but
I was calling it Lifou too.
so yeah, I think in the introduction I called it Lifeu,
Yeah,
but I
because
won't, I won't, I
that's what it
won't
looks
edit
like.
that because I'm admitting that I didn't know how to pronounce it right
Right.
now. So,
That's that I mean that's what it looks like. And that's what I was calling it for a while until I heard others saying Lifou. And I said,
mhm.
oh, okay, like Pepe Le Pew.
So what were they like?
So Noumea, we booked a private tour through Viator, the third party company,
Yep, yep.
um, because I didn't care for the excursions that Carnival was selling. You want to be on the safe side so you don't miss the ship, right? So we stayed there until about 5 o'clock. I think we got there at like 7 or 8 o'clock, and then we stayed. No, we got there at 7, and then we stayed in 7 a.m. and then we stayed until 5.
Hmm.
So we figured if we did a tour that was early, get there, do what we need to do, and then get back on the ship, just in case anything went down.
Right.
So we saw an excursion. We thought it would be cute with for the kids. It was called a turtle tour. So they took
Hmm.
us like to a private beach, and it got pretty good reviews. So they took us out on a speedboat, and they took us to this little remote marine reserve. And I mean, most beautiful beach I've probably ever seen in my life. Like
Wow.
it was white sand, blue waters, and there were Aboriginal people there. So we talk about melanin. That's not something we see on this continent often. Um,
Now, forgive me if this is a naive question, but I never been there. Could
mhm.
you communicate with the Aboriginal people? I mean, did
I
any
mean,
of them?
for the most part, we didn't have much interaction. There was one guy who asked us if we wanted our picture taken. And we was like, sure. Because, there were already 5 of us. So we weren't going out of our way to like really talk to that many people, especially on a port stop. But, other than good morning and hi, that was it. But no, the gentleman that we met that took our photos, he spoke English. And they have their own native language. Now, in Lifou, we saw more Aboriginal people than we saw in Noumea. Actually, in Noumea, correct me on that. We went to a grocery store because they obviously didn't sell anything at the beach. It was a remote kind of area, so
Hmm.
they guided us over to like a little grocery store. So we got to see like the products, and I took video in there because I was like, oh, okay, they have their own thing here, which was totally different from the United States.
Hmm.
Obviously, they sell Coca-Cola and all the big national brands that we sell. But yeah, the people at the registers, they didn't speak English. So they were speaking French. And my cousin-in-law, he's Haitian. So
Ah,
he speaks Creole. So he kind of got by a little bit with some of the things that they were saying. Yeah, so yeah, they were communicating with us on that front. But in terms of like, going out their way to say, hey, how you doing and stuff, like, not really. No. But then in Lifou, that was a little bit more, you saw more indigenous people there because it's an inhabited island. So you saw like the little houses and things like that off in the distance from the beach area. And you saw like little children, and they doing cultural dance. It was very touristy. Uh, but then some of the signages were written in English, French, and then another language, which I still couldn't even tell you what the language was.
hmm.
So I'm assuming it's a native language,
Aborigines.
possibly.
I, pro-
I would have to do. I have to do my
I
research.
probably just made up a word.
You probably did. But I would have to do my research on what that was, because I actually posted it on my Instagram story, and I said, "Does anyone know what this language is?" And no one knew.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
yeah.
So, and then you wrapped with 6 days in Australia. That sounds interesting. So, tell me about that.
Oh, it was fantastic. So we disembarked on the 26th, which pretty much in most countries in the world is Boxing Day, obviously not here in the United States. Um, so we got off and we went to we rented a condo, in a condo, more like a hotel kind of condo thing,
Hmm.
called the Marathon Suites. It was absolutely beautiful. We stayed on I think the 42nd floor, which is probably the highest I've ever stayed in a high rise.
Hmm.
Um,
Now,
you know,
was that like a Airbnb or
no,
VRBO
it's
or
like
just a regular hotel?
it's a hotel chain, and it's
Okay.
really, designed in a condo setting. So you'll get basically, we rented a 3 bedroom because there were so many of us. And then it had 2 bathrooms. and a full kitchen and a laundry room and a living room, and multiple and TVs in every room. So the amenities were really good. The only complaint I would say was that when we first got in, the check-in, the room was not ready. We had gotten there a little early because we obviously got off a ship. And we took our time getting there. We knew the room probably wouldn't be ready. So we left our bags with them. That was great. So we were able to, walk around town a little bit. And we were right in the business district where we could go shopping. So it reminded me of like 34th Street / Fifth Avenue. So you'd have your regular mall stores on the outside. And then around the corner, you find Louis Vuitton and Rolex stores. So it was a great convenient location.
So you went in Louis Vuitton and the Rolex store, and you bought all your Christmas presents.
Oh, absolutely not. I will tell you, that's where I didn't do my research. My whole train of thought was we're just gonna buy UGG boots, and that was it, because they're different from Australian and American UGGs. It was funny because before we had left, there was a whole controversy on TikTok about the difference between Australian Uggs and American Uggs, because American Uggs used to say UGG Australia on the back, and they got sued for that because they're not Australian. So they're really Californian Uggs.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So Australians are very proud of their Uggs, but they don't, some of the styles are not the same, which is fine, but the sheepskin is real, which is great.
I remember when I first learned of your trip on Melanin at Sea, you had a comment about Uggs. It sounds like that was a highlight of Australia.
Right. And when you have a young teenager, that's all they think about, because that's in style right now. Mm-hmm. So they want certain style. Thankfully, I was able to get her 2 nice pairs, and she wears them to school very proudly because, not a lot of kids get to go to Australia. I know it took me 40 plus years to get to Australia.
Two nice pairs that she couldn't get in the US.
Correct. And the prices, like I mentioned, the price exchange was, in our favor. So I got them cheaper than what they would have been here.
So I suspect you got yourself some as well.
Yeah, 1 pair. And then, I had to look out for mom and dad and, family members, and Jasmine, she got a cute little pair. So
did you bring an empty suitcase with you?
So I have a little sports bag that zips up. It's like a duffel bag, and I brought that inside of a suitcase. So I knew, boots are big, and I wanted to keep the boxes somehow. So I brought that little duffel, but honestly, I probably should have just went empty-handed, because everything you need is in that area. Mm-hmm. Well, you're a New Yorker. You remember Woolworth, right? Mm-hmm. They have Woolworth in Australia.
Woolworth? I would have guessed that is long gone.
No, it is, and it's totally different. It's more like, for them, it's more like a Target / grocery store kind of deal. Okay. Like it's everything Woolworth probably should have been, and they probably wouldn't have went out of business. Mm-hmm. But they're still carrying that name, and Kmart is still in Sydney as well. Mm-hmm. I said, "Oh, look at them! They resurrect the dead American brand."
So sounds like shopping lived up to expectations.
Absolutely.
Did you try any Sydney nightlife?
We were so tired. We went to the club on the ship. Mm-hmm. So that was all our nightlife, but we really didn't go out of our way because we were doing so much exploring during the day. There was never a day where, especially me and my daughter, we didn't sit down. We even went to they have this amusement park called Luna Park. Mm-hmm. It's across from the Harbor Bridge. Beautiful views. You can ride amusement park rides. They even had like roller coasters in there and stuff. We did that. And it's also summertime there. Mm-hmm. So you're dealing with the heat, walking around all day sometimes, and you just get drained. So we were in the house by like 10 o'clock. Mm-hmm.
So I read where you have vowed to go back again someday. What have you learned? What will you do differently?
If I went back again, I would definitely check out other cities. I would definitely go back to Sydney, but I think I would try to get down to Brisbane and Melbourne. Just to check that out. Yeah, we went to, we did the beach. We did everything, I guess, touristy. And now we would probably want to do more kind of like local kind of stuff. We even did the Blue Mountains, which I had no idea that it was as big, or no, it's 2 times bigger than the Grand Canyon.
Wow.
Absolutely. Oh, phenomenal. Absolutely amazing.
So how far are places like Melbourne and Brisbane?
I don't know, but you definitely have to fly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're all on the same coast. Australia has 5, whereas we have 50 states. They don't have 5 states, but those 5 states are broken up into like different regions of the country.
Let's talk a little bit about the future, Venus. Some new ships are coming out in 24 or came out late 23. Are you looking forward to checking out anything in particular?
Not really. I'm not a person who is going to pay a lot for the hype.
Okay. That makes sense.
I feel like a lot of the new ships stick around to the Caribbean. And I mean, as I said before, I want to try new and different places if I can. It's more about the experience for me rather than the bells and whistles of a ship, because they're always going to be there. I got to do the Mardi Gras when that came out and the Prima, and don't get me wrong, they were good for what they were, but they didn't razzle dazzle me at the destinations because they had been places I'd been before. My sister just got off of Icon of the Seas. It looks phenomenal. It looks amazing, but I couldn't imagine, breaking the bank. And I could take that same amount and go to Australia again.
Right. Yeah. In fact, your sister and brother-in-law will be on the podcast in a few weeks. No, actually, by the time this runs, they will have already have been on the podcast to give us a trip report, if you will, about Icon. I considered.
They look like they had a fabulous time.
Well, I considered it, but like you, I wasn't looking to break the bank. So
Right.
this is my year. 24 and 25 are kind of my years to check off some bucket list items. Well, if I did Icon, I would get to check off about 2 less than I have planned to. So I'll get the scoop from Rich and Jazzy when they're on the show, and I'll get on Icon eventually. But I'm in no hurry.
Right, I'll see you on there in 26.
Yep. So
I think we're in the same frame of mind.
Yep. So do you have anything booked?
We do. Of course, Melanin at Sea 2.5 is coming up. So that's Virgin Voyages, which leaves from Puerto Rico. If it's one part of the Caribbean, I do enjoy it, is the Southern Caribbean itineraries, which are amazing.
Have you been on Virgin?
Yes, I went in November of 22.
Which ship?
That was actually the same one we're about to take, the Valiant Lady.
Okay.
Because they switched the ship on us this Puerto Rico trip.
So when are you going?
That ship leaves on February 17th. So that's in 2 weeks from today.
Oh, coming up.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 2 weeks from today. And then this summer I have a trip, another Virgin Voyages booked. The Greek island Glow. So we're leaving out of Athens. And I'm doing that one with some friends and cousins.
So that's not a Melanin at Sea trip.
No, it's not. Melanin at Sea switched. They decided to do one right after I come back. So I'm gonna hustle back to New York, go to work for like 2 or 3 days, and then fly out to Seattle because we're doing Celebrity from Seattle to Alaska.
Which celebrity?
Ooh.
Oh, this is the Melanin at Sea trip.
Yes, Melanin at Sea.
It's a Celebrity Edge. I remember.
Yes, the Edge.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are the 3 that I have booked this year. As I mentioned, we try to do 4. We'll see if later this year something pops up, but I don't know. I don't know. I kind of wanted to do a New Year's cruise at the end of the year, but the way these prices are looking, I might be on there Ryan Seacrest at home on the couch.
So have you been to Alaska?
I have not. This will be a first time.
Well, that's something I can share with you. It is. I took my first Alaska trip this year, but not. I guess 23. And
right, because you said you did it from Hawaii, right?
Yep. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, that's all I can say. We'll definitely go back, and you would think that I should say I was thinking years ago, no, I don't want to go somewhere where it's cold and snow all the
Oh,
time.
right.
But
Hmm.
now you get past that pretty quickly. And plus, when we went, it wasn't real cold. We bought all of this stuff, long underwear and these heavy duty construction gloves that you can wear in below zero weather and you won't feel a thing. And my daughter even sent me some hand warmers. We didn't need any of that. Any of that.
So it was like a New York kind of.
Yeah, I mean, one day, this place called Ketchikan, Alaska. We were there, and it was like 65. And
Oh,
I saw people now, not us, okay, but I saw people with short sleeve shirts on.
of course, because their body is readjusted
Yeah,
to freezing.
they didn't know how
65 is gonna be
they didn't know
warm.
how to act. I mean, they were acting like it was a beach day. It wasn't that nice out, but it was definitely nice. So but yeah, I hear it can get pretty cold, and
Of course.
I also hear it can get very, very. It rains like every day there, but when we were there, never
Right.
rained.
Oh, that's great. You
Yeah,
got
I
great
had
weather.
on, I
Yeah,
had
I'm
on
gonna
my
get some. I think I'm more focused on getting rain gear than the extra heavy snow because it's gonna be summer.
yeah.
So of course you're gonna get your 50 and 60-degree days, which, like you said, for them is warm.
I have. You mentioned Virgin Voyages. I'm going on my first Virgin Voyage cruise in April. So
Oh, nice. Come on.
it's a Scarlet Lady.
Okay,
So
that's the one. I would love to go on. That's the original one,
right.
and even the son taking Resilient Lady. I guess that's the newest, but they're all the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but you did like you like Virgin Voyages.
I did because when you're on a ship and you hear those annoying announcements in the morning, they don't make those announcements.
Yeah.
You just get to where you go. I mean, it's adults only,
But
so
you
it's
can't bring autumn though. Isn't that tough for you?
no, no.
Oh, all
See,
righty. Okay
you
then.
know, as y'all used to tell us back in the day, stay in a child's place. I feel like we don't use that enough.
Yep, yep. So,
um, yeah, no, but she'll be fine. She'll be on Alaska,
mhm.
which will be something different for her. I told her, get on all the good ones while you can, because once you're 18, you're not going no
You
more.
on your own.
Yeah, you're on your own with your budget.
Yep,
You will
yep.
only come if we need you to be there, and I can't think of an instance where we need you to be there.
So what's on your cruise and travel bucket list besides going back to Australia?
Yeah, Alaska. I'm really looking forward to this.
There you go. So you're checking one
Um,
off this year.
yeah, I would love to do like a Rome European itinerary. Jasmine and Richard and I were looking into a river cruise someday, maybe like a Viking. The prices are just, woof. That's another bucket list thing where, they include all the excursions and you get off every single day.
Yeah.
Uh, a coworker of mine, I just found out he did one. But he said, don't go during I think he went during Christmas
Hmm.
and a lot of stuff was closed because it was the holiday. So he said that he felt like they didn't get the full experience because it was the holiday. They should have went before the
Hmm.
holiday. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going on my first river cruise this year. So
Oh, great. Who are you
yeah.
taking?
It's called Amber Waterways. It goes down the river in France, and then you take a high speed train to Paris, and you do a
Ooh,
3 day Black History tour in Paris.
beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. So
Well, I've been to Paris and we totally did not have enough time to do that Black
yeah,
History. Oh, I need to get back.
yeah. So it's a wonderful itinerary. It's pricey, but I'm older than you, so I got to start checking off some of these items on my bucket list.
I mean, for me, that was the gym that the lady gave me. She said, try to do it while you, and it's funny because I have an aunt who says, you out here vacationing like you retired. And I said, you know what? I don't know what the future holds,
That's right. That's
don't
right.
God forbid I'm, immobile or, need to be homebound. Who knows?
Life happens.
Life happens. You never know. So I said, I want to do these things that I want to have great memories, great pictures, great videos, great experiences with my child, well, especially with her while she's younger, because we all know once you're grown and you're going to look grown, you're never going to change. And you look back and I look to even the Mardi Gras pictures and how little she was compared to now. And even her first cruise, she was 7. She's almost double that now.
Well, Venus, before we let you go, a couple of fun cruise questions, or at least light cruise questions. And then perhaps a fun, what I call oddball question, because it doesn't really relate to cruising. So the first is an easy one. I like to use this to get ideas, and I've gotten lots of ideas from this. So what's your favorite cruise drink and cruise food?
Oh, cruise drink. I'm not a heavy drinker.
That's
Don't
okay.
laugh.
Turn me on to a flavored coffee or a mocktail, whatever you want.
No, I don't even like coffee, but I do like a good Miami Vice on
That's
Carnival.
great choice. That's my first drink traditionally on every cruise.
Yeah, it's a nice refreshing because you're on the ship. It's
Hmm.
hot. You're on the Lido. It's a good
Yeah.
refresher.
And sometimes,
Mm.
the bartenders get creative, with making them. I mean, they swirl the what's it, strawberry daiquiri and
Mhm.
pina colada in creative ways.
Right, because that's also something I wouldn't drink at
Right,
home. You
right,
know what I mean? So it's a good vacation drink. In terms of food, oh, I can eat.
right.
I do miss that unlimited lobster tails, and I knew cruise lines were gonna stop that, especially we went on, I want to say it was the New Year's trip. I went on my mother on the breeze from Galveston. I was at the table and this man had ordered 6 lobster tails. And he took them and he lined them up and he was taking pictures of them. And I said, look at him bragging for Instagram, and he's not even going to eat all that. And I said, the cruise lines are going to get hit to people wasting all the expensive food. So they're going to wind up cutting it out. Sure enough, the next year, well, you get like 1 lobster tail on a
Hmm.
7 night.
So did you
Or no, 2. After that, you got to pay for more. And that's on
did you
Carnival.
get lobster on the Splendor?
No lobster at all.
Mm, okay.
Yeah, I don't know how popular lobster is in Australia. Yeah, but we did both formal nights, no lobster tail. Hmm.
What else do you like to eat on the cruise ship?
Steakhouse is great. A nice, ribeye. I like the seafood shack. I'm a seafoody person. Very happy.
Now, one tradition that I have on cruises, only on cruises, do you eat escargot?
I had it. It's not a fave.
Okay,
But yeah, because
okay.
it's available there. Yeah. Uh, You know,
Yeah.
you try to do 2 appetizers just to, try something unique and then, what you're used to, maybe like a shrimp cocktail or something.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
would say dessert wise, Carnival, somebody posted a Melanin Sea yesterday, the chocolate molten cake or the creme brulee. My daughter absolutely loves that creme brulee from Royal Caribbean. And I like the chocolate molten cake from uh from Carnival. It's really good on Virgin Voyages. They have a oxtail pasta. It's like an oxtail ravioli um,
Really?
in the Italian restaurant. Yes, yes, that's really
Oxtail
that's
ravioli.
yes, because on Virgin everything is like a specialty
Let me let
restaurant.
me let me let me write that down.
Yeah,
The second question, what's your most memorable or funniest or even most embarrassing cruise or port experience?
memorable or fun. I would say funny. Our family cruise, there were 25 of us. This was back in 2018. We were in Grand Turk. And this is when I decided I didn't like Grand Turk. We went to the beach.
Now, Grand Turk, isn't that the one with the Margaritaville right
Yes,
there?
yes,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
So that was my first time there. Ironically, I was supposed to go there on this 30th birthday cruise, But something happened. I think might have been a storm or something, and we couldn't dock there. So they gave us like $30 in credit for not going. And me and my best friend, we were kind of bummed that we couldn't go there. So redemption was ours because me and my family, we wound up going in 2018. And we were all at the beach. The beach was like right next to the ship. So it was beautiful pictures because you're in the beach. The kids, they had horses in the water and the locals were coming by. So my cousin, she did the horse that went in the beach water. Well, we weren't thinking like, we're in here swimming and then the horses are walking in the water. What do you think horses are going to do? Next thing you know, that horse gross. We all fled like as if a wildfire was behind us. and and that was the day I decided Grand Turk was a no for me.
Well, really, though, they could have had that at any beach.
Any,
I mean,
what? Honestly,
the same thing with people who swim with the pigs. I mean,
right.
first of all, my wife doesn't eat pork, so if I brought up swimming with the pigs, that would be grounds for divorce. But even forgetting that,
Right.
I mean, I'm thinking like you were thinking with the horses. Where do the pigs go to the bathroom?
Right. And you know what? Honestly, that was my first experience because the carnival excursion was not at that beach. So that was my first experience of ever having been in the water with the animals. Because it was locals who brought over, and those poor little horses, they look so like malnourished. They brought them over and then he just pooped in the water and kept it moving. So I think the carnival makes sure to do it down beach away from where the swimmers would be. But the locals, they were just out to make money and they didn't really care. So we fled. Another funny story, we were in same location and it was like a long chain of golf carts. You know how they have like a tram kind of deal. So this guy, he told us he used to live in New York and how he retired down there and he runs the tour. So my aunt was pretty much leadership of that particular excursion. So he said, I'll take your whole family on this for $2 a person. And she was like, oh, great. And he's like, and I'll show you a whole tour of the island, right? So we're on the island and the streets are a little rickety and he
$2
a person. But I'll tell you why it was $2. It was $2 because he stopped at every single one of his friends so we could go buy stuff from them.
Okay, and one of those. I've been on several of those tours.
Yes, and we said, you know what? My aunt was like, no, nobody wants to do that. We're leaving. And he was like, you don't want to do that, and we all said no. So he got tired of us after a while because we were getting tired of being scammed. But we said, we're New Yorkers. We're not used to, we are used to tourism and tourists, so you can't really get over on us too much.
And didn't you say he was from New York?
He told us he lived here and he worked here and everything. He was born and raised in Grand Turk, came up to New York to, live most of his adult life and then retired back down there. So he knew the drill.
Yeah. He dealing with New Yorkers.
Right. He even had they had like this it was like a space shuttle piece. A guy will charge you like $5 to go take a picture with it. And my aunt was like, we don't want to do that. And he was like, why not? This is your first time here. And we all said, we don't want to do that.
Well, the third question, the oddball question. Some of your family and friends are listening, and let me say welcome to Venus's family and friends. We certainly hope you have enjoyed listening to the Joy of Cruising podcast, and we'll come back to listen to additional episodes. And please feel free to join the Joy of Cruising podcast Facebook group. So let's have some fun. Share one thing that my listeners and your friends and family don't know about Venus.
I feel like I'm a pretty open book. What don't they know about Venus? As much as I talk and seem like I'm very extroverted, I feel like I'm an ambivert because sometimes I don't want to deal. When I'm on cruises, I guess I'm friendly. I'll say good morning, but I'm not going out my way to be anybody's best friend. I have quite a few drinks in me to loosen up, but I just really want to relax and enjoy my time away from home because I sit in a lot of traffic every day.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I would say that's the biggest thing. I think the perception is, I'm there to be fun and a good time. And it was funny. I think somebody on the first Melanissi noticed that because they called me the conservative sister. Because they met me and Jasmine, and they were just like, "Oh, we thought you and Jasmine are like very similar." And I said, "No, I like to be chill. I have my moment." Yeah.
Now, you taught me a word, ambivert.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an off the wall introvert. Jasmine, I'm going to guess, is an off the wall extrovert. You are, okay, go ahead.
You know what? She is, but she isn't. I would say in terms of she's a show person. That's a lot of theater.
Mm-hmm.
But in real life, she just really likes putting on her bonnet and being in the bed and not, not being bothered sometimes. People don't see that side of her. So she's gonna go home today and she will not reappear until Puerto Rico.
Mm-hmm. So you're an ambivert. What is that?
I'll be social when I need to be and when I have to be. I come from an entertainment background, so I'll have to be out there networking and meeting people and conjuring up business in the business. But I also like sleep. I like taking a nap. I've been a grandma since I was like 5. I like peace. I don't like confrontation. I don't like rah-rah. I don't know my neighbors. I'm not going out my way to know them. I'll say hi and bye, and that's enough for me.
Sounds like we have a lot in common. Well, Venus, thank you so much for coming on the Joy of Cruising podcast, and all the best to you. You've got some wonderful trips lined up for 24, and I know you're going to have some wonderful trips beyond that. So I suspect we're going to have you back. We'd love to have you back if you will be back.
Oh, absolutely, Paul. I thank you for having me as a guest. Congratulations on the 1-year anniversary of the podcast. And I'm already in the Facebook group, so I'm excited to see who the next few guests coming up will be.
All righty. As they say, I'll see you on the ocean.
Will do.
The Joy of Cruising and Cruising Interrupted, each $16.99 plus shipping, and new release, The Joy of Cruising Again for $18.99 can be ordered at the link on thejoyofcruisingpodcast.com. For each of the 3 books, use the discount code Joy of Cruising Podcast and get $4 off. The Joy of Cruising books are also available at Amazon. Order the ebook at Amazon or your favorite online retailer. Stay in touch by joining the Joy of Cruising Podcast Facebook group or following the Joy of Cruising Podcast on Instagram. We're constantly adding new shows. Please leave a review and tell a friend about us. We hope you enjoyed this brief escape to the ocean. See you next week.